So, okay, so we've talked about social engineering, phishing, spear phishing. So we talked already a little bit about malware, but this is how malware kind of works. Basically, if an attacker wants to put malware on your computer or try and take over your computer, they're going to start with a phishing message, as we talked about before. Something that tricks you into clicking on a link and getting a shotgun response that they can actually get something running on your computer. The other way, instead of a shotgun, is they might just have a program that pops up and says you need to update your version of Flash or some other program that you might have running Adobe. So anytime that they get you to click on something that pops up, there's a chance they might be able to actually have it run. And the problem is that many people have their laptops, their personal laptops or computers set up with their own accounts being an administrator, which means they can install any software they want. So if something pops up and says you need to update this or you need to install this, and you say okay, you're letting them install whatever they want on your computer with your permission. So you have to, from a business point of view, it takes some discipline to realize, okay, this is not the software that I use. I don't need any new software. You know, I don't want this thing that badly that I'm going to just trust somebody's opinion that says I should not install this. Always do some research before you actually go to install some computer programs that you didn't ask for. So some of the types of malware that can end up on your computer are things like keyloggers. Anybody know what a keylogger is?
Yeah, my wife uses it on me all the time.
Keep track of your keystrokes?
Yeah, they monitor your keystrokes. They call it spyware. So basically, it will, a lot of parents use this on their kids. I don't recommend it because it can backfire. Okay? Yeah. And not that I've had that problem. But so you can install software on a computer that you think somebody else is going to use, and it will log everything that that person typed in their keyboard. It can sometimes actually capture what's on the video screen as well, and then send it back to the attacker. So they can use that information if you're using it to log into bank accounts or other types of accounts. Okay? So they're capturing all that stuff. It's called a keylogger. It's logging all your keystrokes. There's other software called banking trojans, which are also very dangerous, especially in a business world where you've got large bank accounts with large lines of credit and things like that. What it will do if it's infecting your computer, you won't notice anything wrong, except that when you go to log into your bank account, it will be watching and capturing that, sort of like a keylogger, your user ID and password that you use to log into your online banking. And then it will log in itself and transfer a bunch of stuff out of your line of credit to their different bank accounts. And this is actually, it was a really big problem a year or two ago with municipalities, because they had large operating lines of credit and they just sort of basically empty them out. Botnets are another type of malware that basically makes your computer part of a larger group of computers that are all controlled by a single master. Okay? Think of the evil villain, right? So they can basically make any computer that they have control over do whatever they want. They can download keyloggers to it. They can download software that would turn that computer into a spam server, so it would send out spam campaigns. And of course, they sell the rights to use that computer to somebody. In fact, they can rent out individual computers. Somebody can pay $10 a day and rent out your computer to see what you do on it all day, or just look at the information that's on it. Right? So botnets are really dangerous, and we don't want them on our computers either. And then, of course, you've probably heard of ransomware, right? Which is when the malware basically locks up your computer, encrypts your hard drive. You can't do anything with the computer until you pay them. And usually they want you to pay in what's called Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. What that means is it's an electronic currency that is very hard to track or trace. So that's why they want to get paid in Bitcoin so they don't get caught.
Wasn't there a big company recently that was actually asked for a certain amount of Bitcoins and untraceable, so it's kind of...
Yeah, so I mean, it could have been any number of different places, but the big victims in the past few years have been hospitals, universities, even law firms and others have, any places where there's valuable information and they're likely to not have had backups. So the problem with hospitals is they're always chronically underfunded, right? So they don't have a big IT budget. They have enough to do all the electronic records, but they haven't. A lot of them haven't backed up their content. So what that means is if a ransomware attack hits their network and locks up everything, they're going to pay. Right? And the problem is, you'll pay, you'll get your key to unlock the software or the systems, you'll get access back again, but now you can no longer trust those systems that they haven't been infected or that they won't happen again. So basically you have to wipe everything off all the computers and restart everything from scratch.
Scott, to what extent then, I know there's been some major websites that are using the computational power of your computer to actually do Bitcoin mining.
Right.
Is that still fairly prevalent, or is that something you need to
Well,
consider?
it's actually a fairly new thing, and that what we're talking about is these cryptocurrencies are, it's, you know, currency basically, when you have the gold standard, right, it's based on the limited supply of gold, and every dollar represents some amount of gold. Well, you can't just make up a currency and say, hey, this is worth, you know, $1 without having something behind it. And what they do with cryptocurrencies is the whole supply and demand is based on the fact that it takes longer and longer to create another Bitcoin using computer processing power. And so that limits the actual supply, and therefore the value of the currency tends to rise a little bit over time. But there are lots of people who are just investing in the computing power to create, or what they call Bitcoin mining. So they can actually run the computers to create the new currency, but they have to spend so much money on the computers themselves that have a lot of power and software, and over time it takes more and more power. So it gets very expensive, but some places have invested a lot of money just in mining Bitcoins so that they can get the return on the actual value of the currency itself. And other guys that got smart decided, I'm going to infect somebody's website so that every visitor that comes to their site, I'm going to use their computer's power in their browser to do a little bit of mining for me. So, you know, obviously if you've got millions of people visiting a site and you use a little bit of their computing power, you can actually get some value out of that. So it's started to happen, but I don't think it's going to end anytime soon. There will always be attempts to try and do this, but it's not a huge risk at the moment in terms of you as a business or an individual.
Do you recall I think you remember with the major sites, there was a couple of sites that were doing it, and they admitted that they were doing it.
Yeah, I haven't really followed that part of it, and I mean, it's cyber, but it's not a huge risk to, you know, my clients, so I haven't really invested that much time in it.
So if you've got a backup, you're not going to pay the ransom.
That's right.
But isn't there still a danger if they can use the information on your computer?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's funny because a lot of times when a company gets hit by ransomware, they'll say, well, we were hit, we had backups, we recovered, there's no problem. They will always have in their legal statements, because their lawyers tell them to say this, there is no evidence that any of the information on our systems was abused, okay, in any way.
So like Equifax.
Yeah, exactly. That's their easy way out. But you're absolutely right. There's no reason to believe that the attacker couldn't have taken all the information for their own purposes, in addition to getting the payment. Right? So it's a very nasty thing. All this to say, we don't want any of this stuff on our computers. So what do we do to try and reduce the risk? So number one is check those links by hovering or holding the mouse over a link and see what the actual link is that comes up, which will be the target where you're actually going to be taken. Don't click on unexpected or suspicious links or attachments, even in web forums or social media, right? So it's not just emails, it's anytime you have a link to something, it could potentially be taking you somewhere that you don't know, depending on who created that link. So on social media sites, because anybody can create posts or discussion forum posts, things like that, you don't know if it's been seeded with infected sites, etc. So what I recommend is using bookmarks. If you have sites that you go to a lot, even if you get a notification from LinkedIn saying, hey, your LinkedIn site's, your LinkedIn account needs some attention or whatever, I don't click on the link in that email. I'll just go to use my bookmark, log into LinkedIn, and if they have something important to say to me, I'll see it in my messages, right? So that's a good way to bypass all the malicious links that might come in that way. Using antivirus software, as we talked about, to detect the known malware. The problem is with new malware, we don't know how new it has to be. So for example, if we have an attacker who's specifically targeting Equitable Life headquarters, okay? What they might do is do a bit of research, find out what kinds of software are used there, and all the other stuff they would do as research as a preliminary part of their attack. Then they would create malware that they want to run now, and then they would have to obfuscate it or change the malware so that it's not recognizable by the antivirus software that's out there. All the antivirus software that's out is very good, but as soon as you create a new piece of malware, it's impossible for them to tell right away whether or not it's malicious. And so there's always a little bit of a window between the first time malware gets sent out and the first time it actually gets detected doing something bad. So it could be days, it could be weeks. Sometimes malware, if it's really well designed, can wait months before it actually activates. So it could be there for a long period of time. So we need antivirus software to be able to detect anything malicious that we know about already. If we're being targeted by malware that is new, then we have no technical defense really, except there are some new types of or security software that are looking for behavioral problems, like things where messages shouldn't go between this system and that system in this volume or something like that. So they're looking for what they call heuristic rules that get broken, saying this doesn't quite look right. But it's far from being reliable. So we have to be just vigilant not to be allowing these kinds of attacks to get started in order to really avoid the risks. So make sure you have regular scheduled backups in case of a ransomware attack. You know, the scheduling depends on how often your data changes, right? So if you have data in your database that's changing on a daily basis, a lot of it, then you want to probably back up once a day or more. There's actually a municipality in the States that got hit with ransomware, and everybody thought their IT guy was crazy until it happened, because he did backups every 15 minutes. And so he just had to go back 15 minutes, and he lost 15 minutes worth of data, and it wasn't a big deal. But a lot of places don't do enough backups. If you suspect malware, report it to your trusted IT support team. So if you have your own little home office, you really should have somebody that you can trust to call on for incidents. Anything that happens, you need to be able to get somebody to look at it really quickly.